Bill Reiter, CBS Sports national columnist. Bill, how are you, buddy? What's happening?
Guys, I'm doing great. We're all just recovering from what you were just talking about, which is a pretty shocking trade, especially for Kings fans. It's pretty amazing.
It's absolutely incredible. It caught us all off guard, of course, and obviously guests appearing here on CBS Sports Radio with Ring Central Hotline. That's Bill Reiter, providing easy-to-use cloud phone solutions for your workforce and business communications made simple. For more information, go to ringcentral.com.
Bill, what is the reaction in Sacramento from a fan's standpoint, do you think? Is it something that they're excited about because Boogie's such a headache? Or is this, I mean, we're getting a lot back, and man, we can rebuild in this draft, which is supposed to be really good.
I think the reaction, from fans at least, and I have some buddies who live there who are just casual NBA fans, from fans in Sacramento, guys, the reaction is first shock and then anger. And I think it reflects what the reaction of a lot of my colleagues was over at the All-Star game yesterday on Press Row. Not just that they moved Boogie. Look, Boogie's really talented. I get why you might move on, and everybody gets a fresh start. But the fact that the Kings did not get the haul in return, or the proper haul in return they probably should have, I think the reaction in Sacramento is frustration, at a very, very minimum, reaching guys some serious anger with some fans.
Yeah, and they've been angry for a while, and they've had a right to be ticked off. Team's been bad. Teams let them down. You could probably make the case here. I'm not a huge Cousins fan, even though I recognize his immense talent, Bill, as many do, talents. You could probably make the case that he failed the Kings as much as the Kings failed him.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. It's going to be really curious because Boogie is a just talent, should be a top 3 or 4 player in the league, and as a distraction and a headache and a technical foul machine and a guy that doesn't live up to his talent, he's also a top 2 or 3 on that particular list. Yeah. And whether that's because of Boogie and what's wrong with him, or guys, what really has been, going all the way back to the Maloofs, the former owners, and I like those guys, a really dysfunctional culture, we're going to get the answer. If Boogie shows up in New Orleans and suddenly you get all the good stuff and the bad stuff is kept out of sight and is minimized, well, then we're going to know Sacramento really brought it out in him. But you're right. Like, I'm a big Boogie guy. I love his talent. And we're going to see whether or not the bad stuff comes along with him to New Orleans.
We're talking to Bill Reiter, who is still in New Orleans. And Bill, of course, part of the CBS crew. He's a columnist, CBSSports.com. With us here on Tiki and Tierney. Pardon me, Tiki.
Bill, how will Boogie fit in down in New Orleans? Obviously, Gentry's got some I don't know, questions on how this really works. Drew Holiday they hold on to, obviously. Anthony Davis is the stud. But how does he fit into this scheme or whatever scheme they're going to try to employ with him there?
I'm really, really excited if I'm a New Orleans fan. He's going to play center. AD's going to play at the 4 like they've always wanted. There are 3 or 4. It's not 3 or 4. There are 2 or 3 other centers who are basically bums, are going to get shipped out or sat. Drew Holiday is going to look like a much, much better point guard than he used to. Guys, there's some work to do, right? They had to give some pieces away, and New Orleans is not loaded with talent outside of Anthony Davis. But you've got Boogie at the 5 and you've got AD at the 4. You have the most talented big man combo since Tim Duncan and David Robinson. And I think if you look at the Western Conference, this immediately makes New Orleans a top 4 or top 5 team in the West. I think after a very short learning curve, they're going to be really good and really interesting. And because of the way the CBA is stacked now, you're not going to go out, if you're any team, and get a superstar free agent. You're just not. But you're going to be able to bring in some role players who are going to want to play with those 2 guys going forward. I think in the short term, you've got the best big man combo in the game with Cousins at center. And I think going forward, you've got the most impressive young core in the NBA now. I think they leapfrog what Minnesota is and what we thought they'd be. I think it's a very exciting time for Pelicans.
It is exciting, but here's my one critique, or at least I would contest one thing you just said here. If they are truly going to become a top 3 or top 4 team in the Western Conference, and they might, they would probably hit that stride next season. So there's no guarantee that Drew Holiday is even part of the equation, who's a free agent, as you know, and he has played very well when healthy. He's a terrific pick-and-roll point guard. So if he bounces, this year it's probably a sacrifice. They're a sacrificial lamb here. Going 1-8 matchup, get waxed by the Golden State Warriors. And I don't know. I don't know that they really reached the peak of becoming a top 3 or a top 4 seed, because next season there's no guarantee that their point guard's even there.
Oh, yeah. Well, this year's it's over. I mean, they are basically mathematically eliminated from the 7 seeds. You have to go through the Warriors. I'm sure they'll get that 8 spot, and they'll get smoked by Golden State. But you guys know this. This is a league that's about talent. And you now have 2 of the top 5 scorers in the NBA on the same team. You now have 2 of the 9 guys in the NBA who are averaging a double-double in the NBA on the same team. And you have a CBA that just makes it a lot easier to stay where you are in terms of paying guys. Who knows what Drew Holiday is going to do? But if I'm Drew Holiday and I look at these 2 guys, there's not a better situation you can be in terms of winning. I'm really, really, really bullish on these guys. And beyond that, you don't need a lot of great players to make this team look great. Not that these guys are LeBron James, but we've seen that talent in this league can do really well and make a bunch of bums look really talented when they're surrounded by superstars. These are 2 of the best 10 players in the NBA.
Yeah,
They're
no.
They're the 2 best big men in the NBA. I think whether it's Drew Holiday or somebody else, and I think Holiday probably stays now, whoever's here, they're going to be lifted up by the talent of these 2 dudes.
Now, a couple of the other potential moves that people have been talking about, been floating around. Carmelo Anthony, which sounds like it may be dying, him going anywhere. But then also Jimmy Butler. What do we have on either of those 2 guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the really shocking things about this Kings trade is that it did not involve Boston. And just talking to some GMs around the league over the weekend, there was a view, and I think it's the right view, that if Boston could have made a move for Demarcus Cousins, I'm not high on Jimmy Butler for that team, but Jimmy Butler or even Paul George, Boston becomes a contender. And the conventional wisdom, just talking to folks and texting folks last night, is if Boston wasn't willing to make a move for Boogie, it might be because they are homing in on Jimmy Butler and or Paul George. And Paul George got some questions about trades this weekend, too, at All-Star Game. Guys, I think Butler probably does get moved if there's a good enough offer. But don't sleep on Paul George. If you add George to that Boston team, you might be good enough. You might have an opening to at least challenge LeBron James and the Cavaliers as the top team in the Eastern Conference. And as for Melo, I think he's staying where he is. But it's hard to know, guys. I mean, Melo's got a no-trade clause, and it's hard to climb in his brain. And there's such a historic level of dysfunction with the Knicks, which is saying something that if you're Carmelo Anthony, you may wake up in the coming days before the deadline and say, you know what, to hell with it. I want out of this mess. But it'll really depend on him. Phil wants to move on. The Knicks want to move on. And at least for the time being, talking to people close to Melo, Melo's response is, too bad, I'm not waiving that no-trade clause.
It is what it is. Bill, good stuff. We'll read you. We'll keep reading you here at CBSSports.com. Bill Reiter, CBS Sports national columnist on the hoop scene. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it, man.
You got it, guys. Thank you.
Be good, Will.